You are listening to Behnaz on BBC Radio Wales. It is time now for our midweek menu. And with me now is the owner of Cookery School and Café Shop in Carmarthen, Lisa Fearn. Lovely to have you back on the show, Lisa. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you very much. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very good as well. Very excited. My little boy is very excited about Halloween. We've been practicing trick-or-treating this morning. I'm just wondering if you're a fan of Halloween yourself.
Well, I'm a more recent convert because I was raised up in a quite a strict Christian family, so it wasn't celebrated. But you see, being a few years older than you, I remember when it wasn't that fashionable.
I remember it too. I didn't have it when I was growing up. Yeah, I'm not. Yeah,
it didn't exist, did it? And then suddenly it suddenly grew, and now it's like everywhere. So yeah, But I've got grandchildren now who are very excited about it, I must say.
Oh, so you're getting into the spirit of things. Lots of pumpkins though being carved this week. I mean, everyone's been pumpkin picking as well. You see the pictures on social. Will you be showing us how to use the bits a lot of us throw away?
I will indeed. And any other leftovers in the fridge, actually, because it's half-term week and maybe people have stocked up and, they're ready sort of to cook at home all meals of the day. And by the end of the week, they might have a lot left over. So they can
I was
throw
in
it into
town
one of these
earlier
curries.
and it felt like everybody was out and no one was doing any cooking.
No. We have good intentions and then we end up having takeaways and we eat out and have a quick breakfast here, there, And so we can end up with lots of leftovers in the fridge. So it's always good to have a few recipes to use them up.
Totally. So what are you making for us today?
Well, I'm going to make a pumpkin stroke squash or butternut squash or whatever you have in that family. And I'm going to call it a coconut curry. I know you've had your fill of pumpkin soup, am I right?
Exactly. I was telling producer Paul, all we do is pumpkin soup. And my mum keeps making pumpkin soup and she sent it over. I said to her the other day, Mum, I'm sick of it. This is the fourth one in the last 3 weeks. And I'm so glad you've got this curry for us now.
Yes, well, it's a bit different. It's a little bit less dense. I mean, pumpkin soup can be quite thick, can't it? Quite sort of gloopy. This is a much thinner, flavoursome soup, which can be a soup or we're going to call it curry. For your benefit, we're going to call it a curry. I'm not mentioning soup again.
No, let's take the S-O-U-P out. And you're doing something sweet for us as well, aren't you?
I am. I'm going to be making toffee apples, which is, I love, that's one thing I was brought up with because my mother was a huge fan of toffee apples. And making them is so much fun, slightly hot and dangerous, so it's not for the kids. But obviously you can make small versions using grapes, which a lot of people might not know about. So, and it's such a, I don't know, the image of a toffee apple with its bright red toffee, it's so
screams
autumnal
autumn, doesn't it?
It does, doesn't it? It's lovely.
I love that. Thanks, Lisa. Well, you're also here to help with anyone stuck with leftovers or jars and bottles that you've bought for one recipe and have no idea what else to do with it. So if you want Lisa to make a meal of it, call or WhatsApp 03700 100 110. You can text us on 81012 and we'll be getting stuck into those recipes after this one from Taylor Swift. BBC Radio Wales. You are listening to Behnaz and I'm joined by owner of Cookery School and Café Shop in Carmarthenshire, Lisa Fearn in the midweek menu kitchen. We are about to hear our first recipe of the day, but don't forget, if you need some inspiration on what to cook tonight using the ingredients already in your fridge, why not get in touch? Text us on 81012, call or WhatsApp 03700 100 110. A voice note would be nice as well if you just want to record your voice telling us what you've got in the cupboard or in the fridge that you're trying to kind of make a meal of. Lisa Fearn will help you with that before 3:15, hopefully. But we do have two delicious recipes in the meantime. Lisa, where do we start with this pumpkin and coconut curry?
Well, we'll assume that you've got some pumpkin or have a few pumpkins around the house. But if you don't, you can use a butternut squash or even sweet potato, okay? So it's not essential that you use pumpkin, but it is a useful recipe to use up some of the scrapings from inside the pumpkin if you've got kids, grandchildren perhaps, that are carving them this week. But we're going to start with 3 onions. Just chop them finely. It doesn't have to be too small, but you can leave them chunky if you're going to make a chunky soup, and just pop them in a frying pan or a deep-sided pan. I like to use quite a large saucepan with a flat base or even a wok or anything like that. Drop of oil and fry your onions on a low heat. Now, people think frying onions is easy, but frying onions well is a little bit more challenging. You want a low heat so that they don't char on the outside, but you do want them to soften gradually and become caramelized, whereby the sugar in the onions comes out and you get a nice sweet oniony sort of paste almost at the bottom of the pan. Really nice soggy browned onions, but not burnt. And then to that, we're going to add all the flesh of the pumpkin that we can, up to about 750 grams of pumpkin or butternut squash. And that's about, let's say, a whole butternut squash equivalent, okay?
Yeah.
So you can chunk that up. I peel it first, although you don't have to, believe it or not. You can eat pumpkin and butternut squash skin because it does soften as you cook. So, but I tend to peel it, especially if it's slightly older, because the skin does get tougher in time.
Could you cook it and then peel it?
Yeah, you could even chop it in half, remove the seeds, pop it in the oven to soften, and then cube it and then pop it in. And that'll speed up the cooking process in the pan hugely as well. And that way the skin will very, very much become much softer, and it'll be easy to cook with the skin on. And then to that, I'm going to add a few red peppers, so 2 or 3 red peppers, again diced into sort of 1 to 2 centimetre squares, 3 cloves of garlic, and maybe a teaspoon and a half of Cajun seasoning. Now, I use Cajun because it's a nice combination of warming spices like paprika and cayenne pepper. It has some garlic powder in there, black pepper, but it also has things like oregano and thyme, which gives it a sort of a very nice rounded flavour. But you can add the individual spices, or you can even use your favourite curry blend, whichever that is, and you just add
like
that.
Like a gram masala or something.
Yes, or just a bog standard curry powder, whatever you have in the house.
Okay.
I find it pointless to go out and buy something special unless you particularly use it all the time. And then you just bring that to a simmer, add a tin of tomatoes and a can of coconut milk, and just leave it do its thing. Let it simmer on the hob with a lid on, pop it in a casserole dish, pop it in the oven, pop it in the slow cooker. Even the whole thing will just slowly cook. If you want to spice things up, you can add a whole chilli, which is quite nice. And I love this idea of not dicing or chopping or halving or de-seeding. Leave the chilli as it is and pop it in. Because what you can do then, the flavour of the chilli infuses into your casserole, your stew, your curry, whatever, and then you can take the whole thing out at the end. So you gain the heat, but without having any sudden, bites of chilli in
no fuss. I like it.
No, it's so easy. And then you just let it do its thing. Now you can serve this in a chunky form as it is, and you can blend it. It depends on how you like things. If you've got a young family, maybe obviously leave the chilli out if you've got a young family. But if you've got people who don't like chunky foods, and people are quite funny about things like this. Some love their soups chunky, others love them blended. So that is entirely up to you.
It's a very versatile dish.
Oh, it is. It's lovely. And you know what? It actually makes a lovely sauce to even go with pasta. It is so versatile. And you can freeze it, obviously. You can batch cook it. And you can even pimp it up a little bit with either some spinach leaves. Just stir it through at the end and they'll wilt down and add a little bit of protein and some extra veg, of course. You can even use any leftover beans or a handful of peas, whatever you've got in the fridge. And you could even add a tin of chickpeas, again, if you wanted to increase the protein. And believe it or not, you can even add something like some chicken. If you're desperate to have some meat in your dish, you can add some chicken or whatever, again, leftover meat you have, and add it in.
3 meals in one. I love it, Lisa.
3 meals in one. Yeah. So versatile, but really, really tasty. I recommend everybody tries this because it's one of my favourites, honestly.
We will. And let us know if you've tried it. I'll let Lisa know as well what you think of it. Just go online, search for BBC Radio Wales midweek menu to get your hands on these recipes. So BBC Radio Wales midweek menu. And Lisa's going to be talking us through some Halloween party ready toffee apples next, and we'll be challenging her to come up with a dish for Lynn Bowles, who'll tell us what leftovers she has in her fridge. But before that, I've got orange juice coming up. BBC Radio Wales, you are with Behnaz, and we are still in the virtual midweek menu kitchen with owner of Cookery School and Café Shop in Carmarthen, Lisa Fearn, and we've already had a delicious seasonal pumpkin and coconut curry recipe. Now, but it's time for something a little bit sweeter. And Lisa, what are we doing here?
Well, we're going to make some toffee apples, and we're going to make the nice bright red ones, but you don't have to. That only involves food colouring or not. But what we're going to do, it's a very simple recipe, but I have to state right at the beginning, it can be we're dealing with hot sugar. So little ones out of the way, not even around your ankles, sort of pulling at your legs by the cooker. They need to be out of the way because toffee and hot sugar is hot. But you're going to put 225 grams of sugar. It can be brown or white in a saucepan with 100 mils of water. I tend to go for cold water because it gives you a chance to sort of slow the process down when it comes to the boil and the sugar dissolves. And you're going to put it over a medium heat until all that sugar dissolves, which is about 5 or 6 minutes. Okay. And then if you want them to be red, you can add red food colouring. If you want them to be any other colour, you can add the food colouring at this point. And then when the sugar is dissolved, add a little, just a teaspoonful of malt vinegar. Doesn't need to be a fancy vinegar, just your normal chip shop vinegar will be fine. And then you bring it to a sort of a rolling, a ferocious boil, if you like, for 7 to 8 minutes. Okay, but the timing is important, but it's more important to keep an eye on what's happening in the pan, because what you want is for this mixture to become really thick and syrupy. And as you watch it, when you're boiling it at the beginning, it's just like boiling red water. As you boil and boil and boil away, it becomes very obviously syrupy. And at this point, you're ready to test it. Now, the best way to test toffee of this type is to add it into, what I tend to do is get the tallest glass I've got and fill it with ice cold water. Add an ice cube if you like. You want that water to be chilled because you want to see how this toffee is going to react and be when it's actually cold. Yeah. So at this point, when it's nice and syrupy, you just drop the tip of a teaspoonful in, and if it just dissolves into the water, you're nowhere near. Okay, keep going, keep boiling, and then eventually, when you put a little drop in, and it instantly forms a little a glass ball and sinks to the bottom, almost makes a tick at the bottom of the glass, you know you've just made the perfect toffee. If it's not hard enough, what tends to happen is you'll have a lovely toffee, but it's the type that sticks to your teeth and is very, very infuriating.
Yeah, I don't want that.
So once you've done that, once you reach that point, you take it off the heat to prevent it from burning, and then you cover your apples basically. So what you need to have got is 4 or 5, I think, quite small eating apples. I find them better to be smaller because they're easier to coat. And you can either use a lolly stick or a skewer, or if you've got some twigs in the garden, go out and pick some nice thick, solid, rustic twigs, cut them down with some secateurs, give them a wash, and you can use those for some really nice, rustic-looking toffee apples. Skewer them through the middle, through the core, into the middle, and then very quickly, as fast as you can, but carefully, tip the pan to one side and coat them in the toffee until they're all covered, and then pop them on some parchment or a nice sheet of clean silicone. And if you want to coat them in, say, sprinkles or nuts or seeds, give them a quick dip in the sprinkles, nuts or seeds, and then onto the silicone, because once this toffee sets, you won't be sticking anything to it. It needs to go on there straight away. So it's quite simple. If you don't add the food colouring, you will end up with a nice caramelly colour. You can probably see the apple through, which is perfectly fine, and possibly better. I'm not saying these are for children, given the amount of sugar in them, but they are possibly better without the food colouring.
Do you know, I've never had a toffee apple before.
Have you not?
Never.
Well, I love them, but I must confess, I never eat them off the stick. I take the stick out and I quarter them, and I take the core out, and then I enjoy
what I would do, yeah.
Yeah, it just feels, I don't know, the thought of biting into a big piece of toffee and getting it all around my mouth just does not appeal. But if you don't, like the idea of toffee apple, you can do exactly the same. You just melt some chocolate.
Oh yeah,
and just dip them in chocolate. That's a lot easier, less complicated, and actually a lot safer because obviously, melted chocolate doesn't get quite so hot. Yes, exactly. And they are really, really nice as well. So you can cover them in dark chocolate, light chocolate. Again, once they're dipped in the chocolate, add them into the nuts or the sprinkles. Nice chopped nuts can be really nice as well. And then you can give these away as gifts. You can make these for trick-or-treat on Halloween if you like. Pop them in a cellophane little bag. Make sure it's as airtight as possible and give a good tug with some ribbon around the top to stop the air going in. And it's a perfect little
great
gift for
idea, because there's lots of apples around as well, so it won't end up costing as much if you've got apples still from the garden. Thank you very much, Lisa. If you'd like to try these recipes, why not search BBC Radio Wales Midweek Menu? That's BBC Radio Wales Midweek Menu. Here's Tom Chaplin.